TikTok may actually get banned in the US. It's actually been passed into law. And what does it mean for brands that have just spent the last 3 years dedicating all their time, effort and resources into cultivating large audiences on the platform?
Instagram and Facebook will see this as their opportunity to step in and basically capture the attention that TikTok might lose. What we're probably going to see more than anything is each platform ramp up their vertical video efforts. And Instagram will probably start to prioritize Reels now. These apps maybe bring these formats to the forefront, and then next thing you know, we can't avoid it.
The real loser is creators. And if I am those people, I am taking decisions now to try and protect and migrate audiences to other areas. In this week's Memes and Machines, I admit I was wrong. The TikTok ban in the US may actually happen. We talk about Meta and their AI model. What does this mean? Will Meta win the AI race? And is this all part of Zuck's rebrand in becoming a rock star? Snapchat, the social media app often forgotten, but is it on the rise? We explore. We dive into TikTok Shop. What is the data suggesting? Is it a winner? And have they finally cracked social commerce? And finally, X and Calvin Klein. What are some of the secrets behind Calvin Klein's X strategy? And how are they changing as a consequence of understanding the algorithm? And Oliver admits some things he probably shouldn't on this podcast.
The highest number of shirtless men in any Memes Machines episode so far.
Boom. That was very fitting. Catman, it's good to see you. It won't, by the time we finish this, it will be midnight for me and I turn into a pumpkin. So I'm just warning you now.
Wow, I appreciate the late night.
I know, this is probably late in the afternoon for you. There's nothing worse than being jam-packed with calls and now having to... What, would you say this is a performance? Or is this just a conversation between...
This is definitely a performance. I was in the bathroom warming up earlier.
Good man. Well, dude, I will dive straight into it. I want to talk TikTok ban. TikTok may actually get banned in the US, and I think I was very skeptical of this. It's actually been passed into law. There are a number of things that could contest this, and a number of things in sequence that have to happen for that to actually manifest. But this was a very significant moment. We've debated TikTok before. Is the world better with or without the fun, addictive platform, the social media behemoth that TikTok is? My question to you is, in a world where TikTok is banned in the, I suppose, advertising and media mecca, US, what does it mean for the company? And what does it mean for brands that have just spent the last 3 years dedicating all their time, effort and resources into cultivating large audiences on the platform?
I mean, I think I feel less worried about brands as I do creators. You know, I think it's a good example of creators who have built a lifestyle they may rely on a platform like TikTok, right? Like they may have an income which is heavily reliant or completely reliant on TikTok, and they're about to find that is just completely taken out from underneath them. I think that's the big tragedy here. I think I don't foresee there being a huge kind of gap in terms of product, right? Like I think Instagram and Facebook will see this as their opportunity to step in and basically capture the attention that TikTok might lose. And actually Reels as a product has evolved to a point that it's actually pretty much on par and or at least very competitive with TikTok. And so I think they've done a good job making up their lost ground, which I think is really, really interesting. And I'd say, companies have now built up this kind of muscle for creating 9:16 content. I think that's going to still be super valuable, and they're going to find it very easy to promote to Instagram Reels. I think in general, I think the point you made last time, like, governments intervening with our kind of social media practice doesn't feel great, doesn't feel good. It feels like maybe a step too far, but obviously there's like very kind of nuanced things here. But also I would say it's probably a very beneficial thing for the mental health of a lot of people. And I do believe that. I do believe that as someone who has had to delete TikTok many times, if I was young, if I was 15 and I was using TikTok every day, I don't think I would have the discipline or the attention span, which is already pretty short, that I have now, that I have today. I feel it. I feel my brain's kind of dopamine receptors firing when I use TikTok. And I just know that it can't be good for people who are trying to be disciplined when they're young. And so I think there's probably some benefit, some positive side effects that will come from what is overall, I think, a pretty negative decision.
Do you not think, because of the TikTokification of social media, do you not think that all the challenges that you just described are going to exist on Reels? It's almost indistinguishable, to your point. There was a data point that came out that 50% of all time spent in feed is now on Reels, accounts for 50% of all viewing activity, which is like really fascinating. You're right. It's evolved to the point where the algorithm's smart enough to serve you the perfect thing at the perfect time to keep you scrolling indefinitely in that flywheel. Similar to shorts, I've actually found myself in spending probably too much time in YouTube shorts. Again, for the same reason that I'm hooked into some random video about a dude chopping wood. My feed is so random. One is making candy. The next is some very attractive dude chopping wood. And I'm heterosexual, so it's like it's not even catered to me.
I think it knows more about you than you do, by the sounds of it.
Knows better than me. But I mean, like, there's the most random things, and I've just fallen into these odd buckets for some reason. But my broader point is, I agree with you generally around, the real probably the people that are going to be most affected are those that build their livelihoods within the platform. And if I am those people, I am taking decisions now to try and protect and, migrate audiences to other areas. And again, be quite strategic about how I suppose, commercialize the attention that I have, particularly if it sits in one platform. And we've been through this in social media cycles, knowing that attention, when it is rented from a platform, which it always will be, is it can be fleeting. One algorithmic shift and you lose access to those hundreds, if not millions of people.
Yep.
So I think you're right in saying that, but my question to you is, brands will be fine. They'll just move their attention somewhere else. And you're right, the TikTokification just means that we're conditioned to use those assets. The platforms, Meta will be the ultimate winner. YouTube will win as a consequence of this. The real loser is creators. But what do you think?
I think small businesses as well, right? Like, I think why Facebook was such a miracle was that it allowed small businesses to reach, customers in a way that has never been done at scale. Obviously, Google existed before that, but Facebook kind of took it to the next level. I think TikTok's the closest we've seen since Facebook, where you're able to get hyper kind of localized, targeted. Small businesses were blowing up out of nowhere. Again, it was an opportunity for people to really kind of get a leg up, and I think again they're going to suffer. But I agree. Go on, sorry.
Just on that point, I think it's probably important to note as a predominantly probably. I think the important point is, obviously, if it affects the US, it will have an impact around the rest of the world and their operating model, etc., etc. However, the rest of the world will still continue to be addicted to TikTok. The real risk is, do people follow suit? India was the first nation, I believe. I watched a Wall Street Journal mini documentary on YouTube about the aftermath of being banned within India. At the time, when you go back to when that ban went into play, They banned that a lot. They did an executive order in a similar fashion where they banned a series of Chinese-based built apps. And basically 190 million people were cut overnight. What you saw is the emergence of some incumbents and some platforms fill that void. The next thing you saw then was just this huge rise in people using VPNs. So there was this kind of black market of still using TikTok in the region. So I imagine, people will find their fix if they want their fix. But all the other things where the aftermath is just saying, in practice, how do you actually ban and what are the consequences? It's quite difficult to do if they operate. So, this is a story that I think is just generally going to unfold for probably some time.
But you're right. The almost like damage has been done in the sense that the TikTok feed has spread to every other app now, and I think this kind of like endless vertical video scroll was almost the peak of if you think about the kind of like race or around the war for attention. So like all these platforms are trying to figure out how do we get the most attention for the most amount of time. And TikTok came up with this like crazy, like crack addictive algorithm, tied it to this like 9:16 video feed. And it was like, that was almost like the peak where you can sit there and scroll for hours and not even know, that time has passed. And all the other apps are stealing it slowly. I think LinkedIn even have said that they're going to be integrating a vertical video feed. And that has been done. Like this is now going to be everywhere because apps know that people will spend a disproportionate amount of time and they can sell great ad placements. And so what we're probably going to see more than anything is each platform ramp up their vertical video efforts. And Instagram will probably start to prioritize Reels now. I actually still use Instagram without touching Reels. And so it's possible. Like I still use the app. I look at stories. I look at feed posts. If a Reel comes up, I refuse to look at it. But I'm starting to imagine a world where Reels is the kind of primary feed. You can see that happening. Twitter have experimented with it, where if you click on a video on Twitter and scroll up, you immediately get this vertical video feed, but it's still hidden. It's not a central part of the app. I think what we'll probably see is all these apps maybe bring these formats to the forefront, and then next thing you know, we can't avoid it.
It's the homogenization of social media. You saw this with stories when ephemeral became the primary vehicle of content, where started on Snap, made its way to Instagram, it then went on to Fleets and every other reiteration. Now the vertical feed, we've had the TikTokification. I suppose next step is Neuralink into brain, actual knocks you out. There you go, content forever. Scary, scary thought. On scary thoughts, and this is probably not scary, but Meta released their AI model to the public, and they explained that they're rolling it out across all their products and gave some really interesting user cases. I find this interesting because I think in many respects we are seeing from the titans of tech an arms race, a race to win. And I suppose what's been different about Meta's approach is, and they've always been seen a bit as a dark horse, because the real winners of the AI race will be those that have the most amount of data. And who has the most amount of data? Meta's certainly up there alongside Google. So you go, okay, they weren't the first movers to talk about their AI programs, but they've certainly come out much more aggressive. And what's really interesting about their model is it's open source. And as opposed to every other major model, which is closed, a black box, we don't know what's in it, we can speculate. Mark Zuckerberg has made it open to everyone. As a consequence, I assume he's betting on people and ingenuity and the ability to go create things of value. And it's actually maybe a bit of a nod to his wider kind of resurgence as a rock star public figure. This kind of like, I'm not here to take over the world and I'm not a cyborg shift that he once, the brand that he once held to where he is today. Firstly, thoughts, have you had a play on Llama? And what do you think about Zuck's transformation? Just generally, is this part of a wider ploy to continue to make him super famous?
I think, the AI stuff's interesting. It's very similar to what they're doing with virtual reality. In they see, like, Apple have their kind of flagship, super expensive, closed ecosystem headset, and Zuck's very clear, like, I want to build technology for everybody, for the masses. Facebook have that distribution, they have that scale, right, where they have billions of users across the world, and that means that they reach, like, developing countries. They have users who are, we're kind of in our Apple bubbles where we forget that everybody we know uses an iPhone, but actually not, because we live in a Western country that's not developing. And so I've seen it with the headset, where he might not have the prettiest product, but he has the cheapest and the one with the most scale. I think he sees the same with AI, where he wants his model in everybody's hands, which is why if you go on Facebook now, if you go on Instagram now, at the top of the search feed, it's already enabled. So you can have a play with all that. I haven't actually had a play with it yet. I haven't really found a space for AI in my kind of day-to-day yet, outside of, like, very specific workflows. Like, I'm not using it to complete daily tasks or replace Google yet, so I haven't found the need for it. But yeah, what I have enjoyed is Facebook's rollout. So I've actually been, what I found most interesting about this whole thing is that I listened to his appearance on a podcast talking about the Llama release, which is super interesting. But I also questioned, like, why am I listening to this? Like, I didn't used to listen to Mark Zuckerberg speak.
Yeah.
But I find myself compelled. I find myself drawn to his public appearances now. There's something about his, the way he holds himself, the way he delivers his message. It's actually very engaging in a way that he used to be actually quite bad at this. And so he's had this kind of transformation in terms of his charisma, which I think is a combination of, there's some PR work that's being done there. I think there's some personal brand work that people are doing. I think he's got a stylist now, so he's dressing much better, and that's being noticed by certain communities. I think he's been doing MMA, and a lot of people are commenting about how that's obviously transformed his shape, but also transformed his confidence. And the way he holds himself is just very, very different, and he looks younger. So all of these things combined, I think Mark has done a great job of recognizing. He probably said to himself 5 years ago or 10 years ago, if I'm going to be, if people are going to buy into Facebook as this kind of, technology company that reaches billions of people every single day, the founder has to be someone who people can connect with and people can look at as if they're, seeing one of their own. And I think before that wasn't the case, and he's done a great job of kind of turning it around.
You know what? I've got a slightly different view on the Zuck rebrand. So I often read these released emails from CEOs that kind of go through iconic moments in company history, in the company's history. And what you see throughout the years is Zuckerberg was an absolute savage. As a young man, imagine being 23, you get offered $1 billion. Everyone around you that's arguably there because they're smarter than you, know more than you, have done it before, are saying we should seriously consider this. And your response is so flippant. It's just, not interested. $1 billion. You stand to make 350 million. You've not been building this thing for long. And he goes, I'd probably just want to build another social network anyway. But then you see his, I suppose, corporate espionage of how he's tried to kill off the competition. Probably made one of the best acquisitions ever in the history of acquisitions by purchasing Instagram. Probably one of the best with WhatsApp, that again at the time was criticized. When he took all his team away from desktop, scrapped, and just said no one works on anything that isn't mobile. You look at that guy and go, how at odds must that have been? He's so competitive, so driven, so focused, and then he gets to a point where the world hates him. They all call him a robot. He's got no personality. So I think it's been a personal journey of himself to kind of prove to himself that he can win people over. I don't imagine there's anyone can say to Zuck when you're a multi-billionaire can go, you should dress this way or you should do that. I think that's innate a want for him. So my only criticism or I suppose opposing view is I don't think it's as maybe orchestrated as you believe to service the shareholders. I think it's more for himself and he's done a transformation. What I do love is how he's become this kind of like internet meme. He's now showing a side of himself that like probably every young man would want to. He's really into MMA, so he goes to MMA events, hangs around with fighters, and now he becomes a meme because he's like trying really hard to be involved. And it's like, so yeah, I'm following the journey, and I think his transformation. But the broader point around like public image of public figures within public companies, of course that is true. It's already it's been true forever, but I think in the age of social media where we're trying to reveal what's behind the curtain and everybody's in the attention economy, I just think it's maybe you've just poured fuel on that whole thing. I don't think much has changed, but I just think you've poured fuel. So that's probably my take on Zuck and his transformation.
I think that's probably pretty accurate. And I think that's what you get. That's kind of one of the hidden things about him is his competitiveness. You don't really until you hear him speak about it, you don't really it doesn't exude competitiveness. But then obviously you hear his stories, and he's very kind of he aims up to that, and so yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm just very happy. I think there's kind of a trend I've noticed in tech billionaires is that it used to be the thing that like tech billionaires, they all wear the same outfit every single day. They don't want choice paralysis. They don't enjoy their lives. They live very simply. I think we're past that now. They're all like dripping themselves out, wearing gold chains. Like, I think it's the way it should be. And I think, people have been led to believe that, I can't have choice paralysis in the morning. I have to get up like a robot. I think that's all bullshit. People should enjoy themselves.
Yeah, 100%. And you know the ridiculous thing about that? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with minimalism, but the motivations for billionaires doing that was it's a counter signal. It's a status signal amongst their peers, right? Everything about that was status. If you look at the intrinsic motivations weren't as simple as that. They're not as like, I'm so pure that I want to do that. So yeah, it is interesting. And you've got to maybe give credit to Elon Musk for the way, I suppose, he's become this kind of contrarian public figure, celebrity CEO character. It's really interesting. And one last story I will tell you, because I don't know if you've seen this, but it was probably fascinating. Another figure that was highly competitive, the late, great Steve Jobs. And there was a story being recounted from someone that had sold their company to Apple. So this is very early days, and basically Steve Jobs is having a meeting with the CEO of this company, and Jobs turns around and he goes, you know what, we're not going to pay the $350 million that you're asking. And by the way, by this point, it's already been agreed at board level. And he said, well, I'm going to have to fly to Boston. I'm going to have to speak to, my board. I don't know if we're going to get it passed. And then Steve Jobs just calmly just goes, well, you can take your little app back to Boston, and effectively threatened him that he'd take him out of the App Store and kill his business. And just said, and at the last minute, just took off $100 million of value, said, we're not overpaying for this bullshit. In no uncertain words, did it calmly, did it incredibly insulting. And you just go, there's something about these people that achieve these feats that are just unthinkable and audacious, that they are savages. No matter what image they present to the world, these business leaders are savages, because business is thankless, it's difficult, it's riddled with pressure and riddled with hardship and pain. So to stay at the top and do that, like, it's a different type of beast, particularly at that level.
As brutal as you are.
You know what, dude? I have my moments. So, one platform that we maybe don't cover enough, and I would argue that we're maybe too old to be using the platform itself, is Snapchat. Catman, you're not that young anymore. Get away. I'll tell you an interesting story. I was speaking at an event and it was held at Snapchat's offices. And when you go into Snapchat's offices, they have all their augmentation on screen. So you walk through and you basically get like a crying face, or you get like the cat tongue. Think of all the iconic snap filters as you're walking through and the camera pans on you, and it's super fascinating. They've now partnered with the NBA across the US and they're rolling this out. And you can imagine fan cam where you have crying fans. It's hilarious. And I remember at the time, that was the first time I re-engaged with Snapchat, downloaded the app again. I deleted it off my phone and started to try and understand the value again as a user. So I found it really interesting. Seeing partnerships like this, I think, is a wonderful way to reintroduce Snap. And I suppose it speaks to a broader point around their new positioning. You know, Snap arguably is one of the more inventive, pioneering social platforms and always has been. Yet they never seem to gain the traction across mainstream audiences. They find their niche amongst very young people, or they find their niche in certain communities, but haven't really gained the traction of others in a sense. Firstly, what do you think of Snapchat? And do you have any perspectives on their new positioning, which I think is less social media, more Snapchat?
Yeah, it's hard. I guess I don't have a strong opinion because I just don't use it. Is the first thing, right? Where, it's still massively popular amongst certain, younger generations, and they seem to have. The interesting thing about Snapchat is they're obviously now leaning into their kind of private messaging. It's an app for friends to connect with each other. They actually tried to move away from that, right? So like they went heavy on the Discover. They invested a lot of money into programming. They were paying people to do shows on Snapchat. They had this huge creative fund. My perception is that has largely not really worked out, and they've lost that kind of attention war to TikTok, to Instagram, and they seem to be going back to this kind of we're a place for you to connect with your friends. We're about human connection, and I guess the subway near me, there's a huge Snapchat billboard that I walk past almost every day that has this kind of less social media and more Snapchat messaging.
Right.
It doesn't really hit because I don't think young people make that distinction between, oh, this is a social media app and this is a messaging app, and I'm doing two different things here. You're staring at, the screen, you're looking at pictures, whether it's with your friends or not, you still feel like you're kind of doing the same thing. And obviously there's that human connection part of it. But actually on Instagram, people are sending stuff to each other and there's a huge messaging component. TikTok, I don't know if it's quite the same, but I think Snapchat have lent probably too heavily into what is like an industry insight, right? Like we understand the difference between what it feels like to message friends and social media. We have that distinction, but I think young people see it as I'm just mucking about on my phone. And I don't know if that is positioning that's going to suddenly, lead to explosive growth for them. It's the kind of thing that sounds nice and looks nice on a pitch deck. But this is all with the caveat that I'm not someone who uses the product and hasn't used the product in, the best part of 6 or 7 years. But it doesn't seem to be something that is mentioned for advertisers very often or spoken about as a huge consideration in terms of, driving sales.
Yeah, I think it's a step in the right direction. As I said, these partnerships where they're basically putting their value add and some of their features, and they're really using, AR and augmentation in interesting ways, and kind of trying to find their space as the fun app where you get to be a bit more expressive. I think it's good positioning. I think the partnerships are good. I would agree on the sense that if the positioning is we want more users, that messaging doesn't work. If you're doing tons of out of home in advertising mecca like New York, there's an argument that you're appealing to advertisers and media agencies, right?
Yep.
So, depending on objective, that's either like mediocre advertising or it's actually fantastic. You like objective dependent, right? But I will say I am quietly paying attention in the same way I am to Pinterest around, finding opportunities where maybe other brands and advertisers aren't looking. And that always falls into the category of incremental plug-in to a project or a campaign. It's you never build a strategy around it in the same way you do TikTok, or you have a short form strategy, or, you have an ephemeral strategy. But there is, I think if you work in social media particularly, you probably should pay some attention and spend some time on the app. If you can find time between all the other addictive things that you're plugging into your brain every single day. And on the addictive things plugging into your brain, I want to read some data to you because I found this very interesting. TikTok Shop, something we've talked about somewhat infrequently over the last couple of months, but some of the data's coming back around TikTok Shop, and it's rather impressive. Earnest Analytics data reveals that TikTok Shop maintains a 27% 5-month customer return rate that actually outperforms fashion behemoths like Shein, and it only falls behind Amazon, which has a 36% return rate within 5 months. So basically, what that means is TikTok sales are very sticky. And they, in many respects, you're hearing the stories of, creators building these marketplaces and these businesses that are like TikTok shop first businesses really winning. And the early signs of the data suggest that this is sticky. And for the first time in the Western world, we are now seeing social commerce become a real meaningful thing. And it's coming from TikTok. Again, the Trojan horse of everything. It's fascinating. What do you think about TikTok Shop? Are we going to see this trend continue from your perspective? And are there any lessons to be learned for marketeers from anything you've seen to date?
Yeah, I have a weird view on TikTok Shop in that, and maybe this is just my experience of it, but if I see a product on TikTok Shop, it's like the same as, do you ever go to Soho in Manhattan and have all like the kind of fake handbags and Louis Vuitton hoodies on sale on the street? That's what TikTok Shop reminds me of. I've only ever seen super low price, discounted, crappy products that I imagine are drop shipped, straight from the warehouse. A, the products, I've only ever seen this kind of like super low quality stuff, but B, the sales tactics are, very, very kind of predatory and scammy, and the whole thing just feels like a garage sale. And so, while I think they're probably doing incredible volume, and there's probably, from what I've seen as creators who are doing well out of commission, it seems to be this kind of like low quality, like bottom of the barrel products. And I think we're a long way from, a lot of big brands wanting to kind of put their products, put their storefronts on there, especially when, they already have their own kind of point of sales tools. So that's just my personal perception. Maybe there's like stuff I'm not seeing, but TikTok Shop to me just seems like a bit of a mess in terms of the actual products, but it sounds like it's performing.
Yeah. I'm going to disagree because I've seen every major retailer. I don't know the data. I don't know if it's driving sales for them. I will say it feels unnatural when you see Zara do TikTok Shop. You go, okay, this is interesting. And it's different and it has a different feel to it from scammy creator selling fake Beats headphones. Yeah. I actually bought some fake Beats headphones.
From TikTok?
Yes.
Why?
This was a long time ago, by the way. So they came up, they were like £25. I thought, this is how my first reaction was like, oh, if they're selling on TikTok, it was an official store, there must be some verification. I just assumed there would be some due diligence. And I'm like, wow, this is like a lost leader to get people using the platform. Turns out that they were snide fake TikTok. They got these headphones for £25, as you would expect. So yeah, I have fallen victim to that. Haven't bought anything since for that very reason, but I have seen a lot of really prevalent retailers, particularly in fashion and beauty, land a destination. And objectively, when you see these studies and you look at the research, it seems that if you're selling something that is under $40, that's what the data seems to suggest, that actually it can be very lucrative. One of the things that, as I suppose more an impulse purchase arena, one of the things that came out of the debate I saw was Lux Collective was selling, and they're a kind of fashion reseller of secondhand used luxury goods, and they were doing a TikTok shop selling. So imagine you're doing a TikTok shop, you have this huge audience, millions of people follow you, you're doing a TikTok shop, but you're not selling impulse £30-40 transactions, you're selling something that could be £2,000, £3,000. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see the spectrum, but I would argue that TikTok Shop is here to stay. They've invested a hell of a lot. They seem to be the first social platform to truly break through and make social shopping and give us that, utopia of social commerce, where we don't need to go to websites anymore. We can just see something we like and act. And I tend to believe that behaviors shift based on the environment. So if the environment continues to put that front and center, I don't see a world where TikTok Shop isn't a very important part of the e-commerce ecosystem for a long time to come. But that is all dependent on them not getting banned.
Yeah, that's just right.
Dude, last topic I want to run with you. I want to talk briefly about X. I saw a piece of material from one of my favorite newsletters. It's called Marketing Examples. You may have seen I don't know if you follow Marketing Examples. I think it's really good. They've done a bit of an analysis on Calvin Klein and what they're doing on X. And basically, it's interesting to know that 70% of all Calvin Klein's tweets right now on X are questions. And then that beggars the question why. Well, maybe around just over a year ago, Elon Musk made Twitter's algorithm open source. So you can look at the code and see exactly what variables and impact what is seen and the weightings of those variables. And in short, in the algorithm, one reply is worth 13.5 times that of a retweet and 27 times more valuable than a like. And a response comment is like a supercharger from the original post. So what Calvin Klein have done very cleverly is they've adapted their Twitter strategy, their X strategy, to play the algorithm game. And as a consequence, have seen a lot of success, particularly when you compare them in the category to other similar fashion brands in their lane. Firstly, what are you seeing that is maybe of valuable to anyone if they want to build on X? And are we going to see a future where everybody starts telling us their algorithms at some point? Or do you think everyone else is going to stay somewhat guarded and this is just a very Elon Musk move?
Yeah, the Twitter algorithm has been a difficult one to crack. It's definitely evolved significantly, and I'm seeing a lot of brands struggle heavily to get the post seen by anyone. It's become very much a winner takes all game, the Twitter algorithm. And so I think Calvin kind of figured out one of the ways around that seems to be discussion. And when you're a brand as big as Calvin Klein, I think one of the interesting things here is like you can actually just sometimes keep it really simple and you can win because you're such a big brand, you're such a big name. there's almost a novelty to seeing Calvin Klein asking, like, what are you wearing today? And also the kind of quote tweet, game on Twitter is so big that people are going to, meme your post. They're going to, want to put some kind of spin on it. And I think it's super smart. I think Calvin Klein also just generally have done a great job of, despite being one of the kind of oldest, most historical American fashion brands, have managed to keep culturally relevant for so long, so consistently. It's almost like Nike, right? In that they kind of almost sit above the trend cycle, and Calvin Klein underwear will always be cool, right? They've done a great job, I think, of just being very true to their brand, not giving into trends, right? Like I think when you have brands that are very close to trends, that's when you tend to lose your cultural cachet. They're doing a good job of being very consistent, and they always seem to have the right influences and the right creators. I remember there was the I can't remember his name, but the show The Bear, which is about the chef, Jeremy Allen White, his name was, and the Calvin Klein campaign dropped with him just as that show came out, and was the kind of talking point, and that campaign was everywhere, and they just seem to know who to pick and when to drop it at exactly the right moment. And you see it consistently. They've done this over the years. Like Justin Bieber, right, was one that sticks out in my mind a few years ago. And so, yeah, I'm always been a big fan of Calvin Klein, and it's always the simplicity of it, right, which is famous guy in their boxes. That's it. They don't have to do anything else, right? And they're not trying to be clever. They're not trying to be super creative.
Yeah, I agree. And one of our old colleagues, Paige, I believe, is heavily involved or heads up their social there. So I got to think Paige was always very... It must be, yeah. We're giving props to Paige. Cool. No, I agree, dude. I think there's a lot to be learned in... And I've actually started to see some really interesting work in a similar vein from Gap. It's kind of cool seeing retailers that have maybe stood the test of time, undoubtedly had difficult moments. Nike are going through this kind of interesting period where they're facing criticism and I suppose have commercially stagnated to a degree by their standards, by the way, but not, and a really interesting, a fashion business to me is a marketing business. So yeah, couldn't agree more, my man. I think you raised some great points. And on that note, we'll call it a day because I need to go to bed. Always a pleasure, my man. We'll speak soon.
See you next week.